Whenever you ask, a Tory or someone who's very much on the right, what is it that the UK government, would you say, spends the most money on? And quite wrongly, they will often answer, oh, it's the massive benefit bill. Or they will say something else. But more often than that, it is very, very much thinking that we spend billions of pounds on people who are like conning the benefit system. When in reality, when you take a look at the official numbers, very, very few people actually do that. Even the benefit fraud, even though because of this massive worry that there is this benefit fraud, there are massive teams within the Department of Work and Pensions looking for fraud. They don't find it. And of course, I've just said what our real number and the increasing cost of what really comes from what our government is going to be spending over the next couple of years. And that is, of course, pensions. We spend more money of our GDP on pensions and paying out those pensions than anything else that the government currently offers. So, of course, the Conservatives are never going to go after that, nor are they going to actually sort of tell people the truth on that. And, of course, one of the big things is because we have an increasingly aging population, that number is only going to get bigger. And how do you solve a problem like this, where we have a decrease in our population? What you would normally do is you would have immigration. And because we've had immigration for a number of years, we've been able to offset that. Because you have a look at the numbers, you take two different types of immigrant. You have the EU immigrant and the non-EU immigrant. Both, pay into the system and both take out less than they actually put in. In fact, the EU immigrant actually puts more into the system and takes out less than their non-EU counterpart. So EU immigration was vastly, vastly better for the country and helping very, very much put off this demographic time bomb. But unfortunately, now with Brexit and the loss of freedom of movement, we have now started a ticking time bomb that is going to cause a problem in the future. And of course, no one in the government is currently even worrying about this as a potential problem because it hasn't hit yet, or shall we say it hasn't dawned on them yet that this is going to be another crisis. And there's one thing you can certainly tell about this current government is that they pile crisis after crisis after crisis without even solving or addressing the root problem of these crises. So let's get into this piece today, because I think this is quite a good one that sort of sets out the problem that we are going to be facing. So, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, there is the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there's the YouTube subscription button as well, where you get sort of badges and emojis and all that when you sign up to it. So, over we go today to the the central bylines. I thought it was a different one. The central bylines today. The title of "The Loss of Freedom of Movement Has Detonated the UK's Demographic Time Bomb." The growing labour and skill shortages across the UK economy are fundamentally down to the explosion of our demographic time bomb. The UK has an ageing population, and with an aging and shrinking domestic workforce, and just importantly, an aging, shrinking domestic business owning class, more people are retiring from the UK labour market at one end than are entering it at the other. And freedom of movement mostly diffused the UK's demographic time bomb. But Boris Johnson's hard Brexit, endorsed by Keir Starmer, again, I wouldn't say he's so much endorsed it, but that's a different conversation for another time, has rearmed the bomb and is now exploded. Over a decade ago, civil servants like myself were briefing job centre colleagues and external partners across the country about the consequences of the UK labour market of this explosion. We spoke in Birmingham and Solihull on matters like recruitment, retention, returners, and midlife care switchers in the context of an aging workforce. But just over 12 years ago, as a DWP official, I sat in a meeting at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, where in Birmingham, with colleagues in the National Health Service resource staff, we were told by one NHS staff professional that the nationality that they had estimated that they would need to recruit 1 in 2 of all school leavers at age 16 just to maintain their headcount. So think about that, just because that's worth bearing in mind. NHS staff, to maintain their current level, would have to recruit 1 in 2 of all school leavers at the age of 16 to maintain their headcount. You can see just how much of a serious problem this is. And it's not just the NHS, it's the entire economy that is going to suffer. Today, we have some 100,000 unfilled vacancies in the NHS. And I'm inclined to quote Snigger when Johnson or Starmer talks about not just filling those vacancies, but expanding the total number of staff employed in health and social care in the UK. 5% of all those working in the NHS in August of 2019 were EU citizens. That figure rose to 10% in the West Midlands regions of the NHS. And NHS consultant vacancies have reached their highest level in nearly 10 years. 48% of those advertised in consultant positions across the UK were left vacant in 2020. And half of the unfilled posts were due to nobody applying for them, and a third were down to the lack of suitable candidates. So the most significant short, medium, and long-term answer to the UK's labour and skill shortages problem was to remain and remains with foreign-born labour to try and substitute for the native-born workers who have never been born. The alternative is that the population of the UK accepts a poorer living standard for the foreseeable future. That might include some having to work longer than now. And if the government increases the state retirement age as one possible response to the explosion of this demographic time bomb, there was one aspect of Brexit that the Leave campaign avoided mentioning in 2016, although I guess cakeism sort of covered it. We were once promised that all the benefits of the single market, even when we were out of the club. Freedom of movement in a labour market of 32 states, now 31 with us outside it, worked to defuse the UK's demographic time bomb. Ending freedom of movement mostly created the labour and skill shortages the UK economy is now facing. So despite all the claims to the contrary, Eastern European building workers did not drive down pay, terms and conditions in UK construction. And according to Meerkat's monthly industry surveys, demand for UK labour in the construction industry was exceeding supply as far back as 2017. Even with migrants in the mix, employers actually raised pay, terms and conditions as they competed for scarce labour and skills. Yet, in 2021, Starmer and Johnson talk about building back better or similar. Further, they went on to recruit more significant bricklayers, electricians, plumbers, roofers, labourers, carpenters, plasterers, surveyors, and architects and HGV drivers to try and make their visions a reality. The key policy solution was migration, and courtesy of the single market, it was a solution that provided a relatively hassle-free process of moving between countries for work to set up and even take over existing businesses. The negative consequences for the end of freedom of movement on businesses and formation and even ownership in the UK have still yet to really surface. Some of the UK businesses are seeing a downturn in sales revenue, competing for the new necessary paperwork, and even the trade with customers in the single market takes time away from making money. Other companies may well close because their business model that was predicated on being inside the single market customs union may not even adapt well to the new reality of being outside both. And because of the demographic time bomb, some businesses will cease trading altogether. Their aging owners cannot face dealing with all the new work, particularly having to have to cope with the stress of preparing for 2 no-deal Brexits and coping with COVID. And it is a fairly standard storyline in The Endeavour or even in Midsummer Murders. The older generation bemoaning the fact that their offspring are not interested in taking over the family business. In 2021, it was not unusual to find that those offspring were never born, and there are now even fewer migrants who might even sell one's firm to in case of a few years ago. Freedom of movement provided people who could buy businesses from retiring UK company owners, and then the migrants would set up new businesses in the UK. How many of those people have set up new enterprises and bought existing ones to the UK will now stay here? If they decide to leave, whom will they sell their business to? Some businesses, of course, are trying to take on staff handling all this new paperwork with jobs that are not profitable. They have been created to try and maintain the sales, not increase them. They have now eating into that bottom line, reducing the company's profits. The obvious and only major practical solution here is to restore or is to be the replication of freedom of movement. In particular, the ability to put down roots in the UK so that people can live and work there rather than being treated as necessary but unwelcome. The approach the UK government is adopting towards these issues and its emerging issues with the 3-month visas will make work in the UK attractive only to the very desperate and not especially competent and those unaware of the toxic environment that's been created in the UK since 2016. Toxic not just for migrants but immigrants, but blame folk born and brought up here too. Priti Patel will not countenance any resurrection of freedom movement, and neither will Labour. And according to Rachel Reeves, who incidentally has crafted her own policy of buy, make, and sell more in Britain, a wheeze almost guaranteed to drive up further wages drive a wedge between the UK and the EU, as well as antagonise the US. It is also interesting, however, that Patel's policy of growing our own domestic workforce does not extend to the UK's armed forces. The rules of overseas recruitment by the Ministry of Defence has been relaxed since 2016 in order to address the labour and skill shortages. Now 10% of the regular army are now foreign mercenaries. So when will it end? When will the dictatorship of the dwelling number of hardcore Leave voting Britain First fanatics end? It has to date survived 2 general elections since 2016. When will the Conservative and Labour politicians start speaking truth into what are now amounts to the minority of the electorate? There's no getting around it. The demand for labour in the UK exceeds its domestic supply. An increasing pay may shuffle people around the labour market, but it will still leave the overall number of vacancies unfulfilled. There is not enough of us of a working age who were born in the UK to do all the things to keep our society and economy functioning. So that's the problem we are facing. And it is a very real problem. Make no mistake. This was an argument I wish we'd sort of advanced back in 2016. I wish the Remain campaign had sort of advanced this as an argument, because this would have been a very interesting to see Leave try and fight back against this, because the more and more the government goes into a more right-wing stance, and both Liz and Rishi Sunak have very recently announced even harder policies to try and clamp down on more immigration. What we've just gone through here, the fact that to maintain its NHS levels, and this was a couple of years ago, remember what the article was saying a couple of years ago, they would have to recruit 1 in 2 school leavers at age 16 to maintain current staff levels. That should shock you. But it also goes to show why we need, immigration in this country. We're going to be facing a huge slew of problems. And as we said at the beginning, our government is just very, very happy just to go, look at all these crises we've collected. It's like some sort of, Panini sticker book, Which crisis have you got today? I've got a new, demographic crisis. I've got a problem with the labor market crisis. I've got a problem with our decreasing tax returns because less and less people are paying tax because, they're out of working age. Um, you know, this does create so many more problems. And the problem is no politician seems to be really wanting to tell the truth. And sooner or later, they are going to have to. And it's unavoidable. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Like I say, I'm sure this is fascinating reading. I'm sure there's a lot of you who are, again, in retirement age. Hopeful we'll have some very sort of interesting comments. Like I say, you may very well be the last generation to be able to retire at that age if you live in the UK. I don't even know what age I'm going to be able to retire at in the UK, to be honest. That's, it seems a long way off to me, but, who knows when that could be. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.